Hello everybody, welcome to Amy's Bookshelf. So, as you might know, I published at the end of last year my video on my top reads of 2022, so go check that out. It was 3-ish, couple of bonus ones. So I thought it was only fair that I do my least favourite or worst reads of the year as well. Now I feel kind of mean. I don't like slating books for the sake of it, so I will try not to be too harsh, and I think it's always important when you hate a book to look at it objectively. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean somebody else won't like it. Works the same the other way around as well. But yeah, I think when you read, well, I read 120 books last year, you're not going to like all of them. It's inevitable. So, you know, that's okay. This is a safe space. But yeah, like I said, I'll try not to slate them too badly, but I'll just tell you what I didn't like about them. But if you did like them, please do let me know, because I always enjoy when people have very opposing opinions about books. Yeah, okay, I think that's about everything. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I have chosen 5 to talk about that I didn't like last year. One of them I DNF'd, the other 4 I gave 2 stars. I very rarely give a book 1 star because I mostly feel that, like, even if you don't like a book, you can normally find something you like, and if it's been like published traditionally, a lot of people have read it, so there must be something okay about it. Yeah, so I don't think I gave any, no, I didn't give any books last year 1 star, but these are a selection of my 2-star ratings. So yeah, I think a couple of them might be controversial, but we will see. Let's get into it. So I will start off with the last book that I read, or the last worst book I read of 2022, which is Christmas at the Palace by Giovanni Chirica. Now I got this, I think, in 2021, and I was going to read it that year at Christmas, but I didn't. And obviously because it's a Christmas book, I waited until December 2022 to read it, because it's kind of weird reading a Christmas book any other time of year. And it's basically just a very slushy romance. The 2 main characters, one of them is the Prince of England, the other one is a doctor. They fall in love, etc, etc. Now, I don't mind like terrible romance storylines. I kind of love them actually. So the romance part of it was fine. You know, it's kind of cute when you have like a stereotypical, you know, ordinary girl and a prince falls in love with her, you know, and it was very modernised. The whole way through, the author was very adamant to make sure that the girl in it, I can't remember her name, let's have a look, Kumari, to make sure that she came across obviously as a very intellectual and self-sufficient woman. She didn't need to be whisked away by this prince, but she was. So yeah, that were the things I did like about it. But the main reason I didn't like it was because this was just Harry and Meghan fanfic. And when I say Harry and Meghan fanfic, I don't mean like, oh yeah, it vaguely was similar. No, it was like painfully similar. So, I mean, for a start, the guy on the cover has ginger hair. Anyway, but it was like there's siblings in the book. The prince has siblings, and okay, it's not like one brother, but their mum has died previously, so that comes up quite a lot. And then it's just everything that kind of could have been similar was similar, and I just got a bit bored of it. And maybe it's because Harry and Meghan are in the news a lot at the moment, on social media especially. It's very hard to get away from it. I'm not a royalist. I don't really care about what goes on with them, to be perfectly honest, but I still can't avoid it because it's everywhere right now. So I think I read this at the wrong time because I just did not care about that at all. I wasn't really invested. And then, you know, I think a lot of the reasons that they then had issues in the relationship felt very superficial. It had the classic miscommunication storyline, which, let's be honest, we're all very bored with. So just overall, it wasn't great. I didn't love it. But, you know, I will try and see the good side of it, that it was just a cute romance, and if you're looking for something easy to read, this probably would tick that box. So next Christmas, if you fancy picking up a copy, then by all means go for it. Okay, then next, and this is where things start getting controversial, to be honest. Rarity by Colleen Hoover. Now, I have an interesting relationship with Colleen Hoover. So I read It Ends With Us in February of last year, and I adored it. I really used to like Nicholas Sparks when I was like when I was a teenager, basically. But I stopped reading his books because he was homophobic. There was some like emails that came out that showed him to be homophobic, so I didn't really want to support that, and I'd read most of his books anyway, so I didn't need to continue. But I really did miss the kind of romance that he wrote, and when I read It Ends With Us, it really filled that hole, so I was kind of really excited. However, the next book I chose to read was this. This is probably my own fault because this isn't really a romance. So this is a thriller, kind of suspense, and there definitely was a lot of suspense in it, I'll give it that. And if you don't know the vague synopsis, it's about a woman who is a writer and she's struggling to get published, I believe, if I can remember right, and she is offered a job to finish the books of another writer who's been in an accident and is subsequently in a coma, so is unable to finish the books. So she accepts that, but the weird thing about it is she has to go live in the house that the woman and her husband and family currently live, because her office is there, so all of the manuscripts, all of the notes, everything she needs to finish the books are in this office, so she needs to be there. So she has to live with this family and the woman herself in this coma upstairs while she's finishing these books. So the thriller part of it I think was okay. It was definitely suspenseful. There were like a lot of like cliffhangers, a lot of like, oh gosh, what's that, like bump in the night kind of thing, which was great. Where it just all fell apart was the ending, and I can't spoil that because it really does spoil the whole book, but if you've read it you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And I just could not get on board with it because of that. This falls very much into like an unreliable narrator trope, and I do really enjoy those, things like The Silent Patient or The Push, or The Girl on the Train. I love unreliable narrators because you're always wondering who's telling the truth, which is great, keeps you turning the page, but then the follow through with the ending just made me regret reading the whole book, frankly. I think this is the most an ending has ever ruined a book for me, because I think sometimes you can have an ending and be like, oh, that was okay, but you still enjoyed the rest of the book, so it's fine. But this really just dragged the rest of the book down with it, and it felt very lazy. So I was really disappointed. So I haven't read another Colleen Hoover book since, and to be honest, she is everywhere and her books are doing very well, so I don't really need to contribute to that. So I don't think I'll be picking up another one in a hurry. But I know that people really like this, and I think subsequently there has been an extended chapter for this book published, probably because everyone was so outraged by the ending. And I haven't read it, but I do wonder whether that would help. We will see. But yeah. So this is a no from me. Okay, moving on, another quite popular author that I really did not enjoy is Taylor Jenkins Reid's One True Loves. Now, this was the, I want to say May or maybe June pick for my book club. I love discussing books with my book club, full stop, but I love it when we all kind of hate a book. I know that sounds nasty, but it is kind of fun for us all to absolutely pull everything apart. There is actually another book club pick coming up that we all hated. And it is kind of really enjoyable, especially when we all agree, and the vast majority of the book club didn't enjoy this either. Now, I've read quite a few Taylor Jenkins Reid books. I've read Daisy Jones, Evelyn Hugo and Malibu Rising, and then this. The other three really enjoyed, especially Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones actually. They were all great, but this I just could not get on board with. So the premise is that there are two high school sweethearts. They get married, and then I think within a month of them being married, the guy, so it's a woman and a man, the guy is in a helicopter accident and presumed dead. So the woman, I can't remember any of their names, I read this back in May, she has to move on with her life basically. Then a year later or so, she falls in love with another man from her past. I think they knew each other at school, and then it turns out that the guy, her husband, who was presumed dead, is not dead at all and comes back into her life. So it's basically, the whole book is essentially a love triangle. Now, again, on paper, don't mind that, I don't mind a love triangle. My issue really, and I think the book club agreed with me, was the plot surrounding the guy who survived on the desert island. It wasn't really a desert island, but I won't go into it because you should read it if you want to. But but it became very implausible, and because of that it kind of just ruined the rest of the book. And there were parts of the book that felt like they had a lot of emotion and depth to them, and could have been really interesting, but I was just so distracted by this other plot that I really just couldn't get on board with it. And I think if the author had done a bit more research, or perhaps just invented a storyline that wasn't so far-fetched, it would have been a lot better. But yeah, I couldn't get past it, and because of that it ruined the whole book for me. But I still really like Taylor Jenkins Reid as an author. I thought the writing was good, and the romance storylines between the woman and the two guys were good. It's just that survival storyline that did ruin it for me and brought it down to 2 stars, maybe 2.5. So yeah, unfortunately it wasn't for me. But I know a lot of people love this book. This is like a book that people have said makes them cry, so there are people who are clearly very emotionally invested. I just was not one of those people, so apologies, but let me know if you did enjoy it. Okay, final 2. So again, I think both of these are probably controversial because I know they're both popular books, but I will start with one of the only DNFs of 2022 for me, which was The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Now, I set myself up to fail with this because I tried to read The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt in 2020, I think, and hated it. It was so boring. I DNF'd that. And somehow, in my stupid mind, I thought, I'll give The Secret History a go. I'm sure it will be better. I'm sure I'll enjoy it. I didn't. It was so long and so boring, and I think I got to page like 300 and I gave up. So this was a big no for me, and on a more serious note, I posted a video on TikTok about this and got a lot of hate for it. So just FYI, don't hate on people for their book opinions, because everyone is entitled to their own opinion. It was quite funny really, because the video went semi-viral. It got like 500,000 views, and it was basically just a load of people hating me for hating this book, which I find really interesting because like it's my account and I can tell people what books I don't enjoy. But yeah, again, if you don't know the synopsis of The Secret History, it is a group of college students in America, can't remember where, and it's set a little bit in the past, I think the 80s potentially, or the 90s, and the plot is about them as friends and their relationship with each other, but then it becomes a bit of a murder mystery. I won't go into too much detail because it kind of does spoil things, and I have heard that the last 100 pages of this book are really good, but I really couldn't make it this far. I mean, like I said, I got to page like 300. It's almost 600 pages, so I got halfway through and I couldn't do any more. And it's one of those books that's really dense, like the pages are really thin, the font is really small, the chapters are really long. It just was a recipe for a boring book, which is why I couldn't get through it. And I know a lot of people, again, love this book, and I really wish I was one of them, but I think I've just come to the conclusion that Donna Tartt is not for me, and that is okay, and I won't be trying another one of her books because I think 2 for 2 is probably an indication that she's just not for me. But yeah, again, let me know if you liked it, if you hated it. Yeah, I would love to discuss, because I have a lot of thoughts about it. Yeah, I couldn't love it, unfortunately. Okay, and our final book is The XX by Erin Sterling. This, again, was a book club pick for November of last year, so pretty recent. And again, everyone in my book club pretty much hated it. Now, when this first came out, I remember it first came out because it was like October 2021, and I'd heard that it come out. I read the synopsis and I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to get my hands on a copy of that, and I couldn't get it because it's a US or it was published in the US first, and I obviously am in the UK, and I think that they hadn't done editions, or I can't remember the details, but I couldn't get a copy, and I was really bummed out, but I was like, it's fine, I'll wait till next like autumn spooky season and read it then. And then it was chosen for my book club and I was quite excited. So the premise, I kind of can't even read it without laughing, but the premise is about a witch, fine, lives somewhere called Graves Glen, and she is in a relationship with another witch called Reese. Her name is Vivian, so Vivian and Reese, and they break up for reasons that you find out in the book, and she is annoyed at him, so she accidentally hexes him while in the bath. The kind of subheading of the book is Never Mix Vodka and Witchcraft, which genuinely is the worst Like, that's not at all catchy or good, but anyway, I digress. So she's having a few drinks in the bath, accidentally hexes him, but doesn't realise, carries on with her life. 9 years later, he comes back to Graves Glen to reset the ley lines, I believe. And when they meet again, Vivian realises that she accidentally hexes him because there are a lot of weird things happening. That's pretty much it. My issue, and the book club's issue as well, I mean, the whole book was awful, to be honest. I don't know how it got published because it's full of loopholes and just bad writing and plot that makes no sense. But the magic in it just didn't make any sense. Like, there was no repercussions. There were no, like, properly thought out explanations for any of the magic, or like the fact that this town is like a witchy town but also has normal people, human people living there who don't know about the witches, and none of that is really ever explained. I suppose the parallels, think of like Harry Potter, and in the books all of the things that were written about how Hogwarts is hidden and like platform 9 3/4, how to get into there, so it's like hidden in plain sight. None of that was ever explained, so there was never any like there was never any consequences if magic were out of control. No one ever explained what the humans thought of what was currently happening, which I thought was strange. And then you move on to the romance between Vivian and Rhys, which was frankly disturbing. Again, very two-dimensional characters. There didn't seem to be any actual thought process to them as characters or their relationship. And then they would just randomly like have sex in the weirdest places. And I'm not saying like, I don't mind erotic, smutty romance. Like, I love Talia Hibbert. I need to finish that series, Eve Brown, and they are really smutty. Like, there is a lot of sex in them, and you could argue random sex because, you know, people get horny, they get turned on, they start having sex, but always in places that kind of make sense. The ex-hex, they're like going into caves and they're like, do you know what we want to do right now? Have sex with each other. And like, they had a purpose for going in the cave that just gets lost and nobody thinks about it anymore. And there is just so much wrong with this book, like so much wrong with this book. I cannot justify it at all. This is probably the worst one of all of them because I couldn't find much good about it. And going into my book club discussion, I didn't enjoy it, but I thought, oh, it's fine. And then having spoken to all of my book club members, so many of them brought up such good points about why this is such a bad book that, yeah, it just made me realise it's truly awful. So again, let me know if you have read it and you did enjoy it, but I know my mind won't be changed and I won't be reading any other books by Erin Sterling. I know that she also writes under another name. I can't remember what it is, but I think she's written a lot of books. So, you know, kudos to her. Well done. But I won't be reading any of them. So that concludes my 5 worst books of 2022. I don't think that's so bad. On top of that, I think I rated another 2 books 2 stars, and then everything else was 3, 4 and 5 star reads. So I think that's pretty decent. You know, out of 120 books, 7 or 8 2-star reads is no bad achievement. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed me trashing these books. And yeah, I will be interesting to see in 2023 which books I also hate, because I'm sure there will be some, but let's hope not too many. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want more, then like it, subscribe, and yeah, I will see you next time. Bye!